What is up, guys? It's Dan the Man, and today I'm back with round 4 of the Georgia Open and Amateur State Championship, and I currently have a score of 2 out of 3. We got a pretty easy, relaxed game in round 3 where my opponent hung a pawn with a nice bishop takes h7 tactic, and then he uh, hung mate. Either on purpose because he wanted the game to end faster or he just missed it. I don't know, but in either case, the game was pretty smooth sailing. And then for round 4, the we upped the ante, and I'm paired against a kid, one of the best kids in the state for his age, named Anmay Chaudhury. Hopefully, I said the last name uh, decent. I think Chaudhury is how you say it, but maybe not. And he's rated 2046. And I've seen him at a few tournaments, but we've never actually played each other. So this was our first game against each other, and I'm gonna go ahead and say that one of us played like a literal bot. Like the accuracy was super high. Um, it was basically playing against an engine. That's what I have to say this game was. But who it was, you'll have to find out. So anyway, Anmei starts the game with e4, uh, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and here we have a Spanish game on the board. And I usually play a knight f6. The Rui Lopez is a very versatile opening. There are plenty of sidelines that you can play. And I choose to go with a6, a move that I have been testing out more often. And here, what Anmei plays kind of surprises me. Everyone I've seen moves the bishop back to a4, and that was my prep, but he instead takes on c6, which is also a move, but it's not nearly as common. And it's just not as common because you're giving up the bishop pair, and you're sort of helping black develop, because after d takes c6, I have a path for my light squared bishop to get out, but it's still fine because white still has pressure on the e5 pawn. But white shouldn't take it right away because queen d4 would fork the knight and the pawn. So usually on my castles here. That castling is the main move. And now the pawn is actually being threatened. So a very common move here is bishop to g4, which just pins the knight to the queen. And then after the bishop gets kicked out, you just trade it off. And after queen takes f3, this is pretty standard sideline of the exchange variation. So I go knight f6 here. And then Anmei goes d3. Here we're just going to be developing our pieces and castling and going into a normal middle game. That's what I was presuming. So after d3, he's obviously preparing bishop g5 or something like that. So I just play h6 to stop that idea. But apparently I'm already slightly worse here as of move 8, which is kind of crazy. He plays knight d2. I was a bit surprised. I thought he would go to the natural c3 square. But I guess his idea was to maybe put the knight on c4 where it would hit my e5 pawn. So he was putting his knight on a slightly unconventional location, but I'm assuming he would have put the knight on c4 from that. So I just played bishop d6. That way the pawn's defended and I don't have to worry about it. He played knight c4 anyway. And here I just decided to castle. And here Anmei plays the move knight e3. And here's where I started to go into a deep think, because the knight is obviously going to this f5 square, and that's a pretty damn annoying outpost. The reason is because it gets close to my king, right? And imagine the knight on f5. If the queen were to slide to g3, there would be a checkmating threat on my g7. The bishop would also be aiming at h6. So there would actually, very early on, be a kingside attack against me, which I obviously didn't want. And in retrospect, I was thinking about playing the move instead of bishop d6. I was instead when analyzing the game on my own, I was thinking about b5 just to prevent the knight from going there altogether, and maybe that would have changed the outcome of the game. Maybe not. Even though it's not the best move, I am thinking that b5 would have just stopped any sort of knight maneuvering nonsense. So I probably should have played a move along those lines, and not let the knight go to e3 and then f5. Anyway, after 93, I was also thinking about playing g6 here, but that kind of looks like it's weakening your king. This h pawn is pretty soft here, and it can become a target with that bishop on c1. So I thought it may be a move I'd have to play at some point, but I didn't think it was urgent to play it now. And I thought there must be another move that isn't as weakening as this move. So anyway, after 93, I yapped about this move for a long time now. I played the move knight h7, and my idea was to maybe bring the queen to the defense if need be. Maybe play knight g5 to hit the queen on f3. And he played knight f5. That's like an instant move. That's the whole point of the rerouting. And here I play queen f6, as I mentioned. I'm getting the queen into the defense towards my king side, and defending g7 and h6. So after queen g3, this pawn is pinned on g7, and I obviously have to move out of the line of fire, so I go king h8, and now the pawn is no longer pinned, and now I'm just slightly worse here. And here Anmay actually plays the best move, f4, opening up his rook on the f-file, and preparing to trade and open some lines to my king. So after f4, I decide to take on f4. Bishop takes f4, bishop takes, rook takes. And here Anmay has a really good position because of the pressure he has on the king side. And also my knight is pretty awkward, and his rook on a1 is going to go to f1, and he's just going to have a very dominant and active position. So I go ahead and grab on b2, even though it actually is the best move, but I might have been a little too greedy, but it's still the best move. I'm like, I might as well grab a pawn. And I knew he would play rook a to f1, and now he just has his whole army slamming down on my king side. And I'm just sort of curled up in a little ball here, waiting for him to do something. So he has a very active position, and even though I'm up a pawn, I do not feel comfortable with my position at all. So I play queen f6, which I thought was a good move because I'm getting the queen back towards the king. But then he plays the move rook g4, and now this pawn on g7 is hit 3 times. And now my queen's in line with this rook on f1, and I'm starting to get really worried about my position because this pawn's hit 3 times. The knight is on f5. Maybe he could sack on h6 in some lines. I don't know, but I figure out the best way to defend the pawn on g7. I was thinking knight g5 at first glance, but after knight g5, I'm like, what if he just plays h4? And sure, I can go knight e6 to keep defending, but then I saw e5, and my queen gets booted out of the defense, and he's just going to crash into my position, infiltrate, and take on g7. So I saw the e5 move would be kicking my queen out. So therefore, I play rook g8. That way, after e5, I had this idea after e5 to go queen d8, which apparently isn't the best move, and now I'm basically totally losing. Because after rook takes g7, my idea was to go queen f8 to try to trade off the rooks, because the rook is pretty annoying. But then if that happens, then he can just trade everything and then go knight h6, and then I'll be down a pawn in this endgame. This knight is going to take on f7, and I'll be down 2 pawns. So that would be a pretty hopeless endgame for me. So I didn't do that. I instead went, after rook takes g7, I played knight g5 now. And this move is pretty, I mean, it didn't really matter, but this move wasn't optimal, and now my position's even worse. So here he just plays rook takes g8 check. King takes would be lethal, so queen takes minimizes the damage. But then he just plays knight h6. He's hitting my queen, f-pawn is hit twice, and I notice he has this pretty disgusting tactic which I can't stop. So after I save the queen, he plays the very flamboyant move queen takes g5. Brilliant move. And the next, he's winning a knight by force, because if I take his queen, he has knight takes f7 check, and then he would take my queen, and that would be down a knight. So I play a bit of a creative move. All moves are losing, but I try to think of a creative move. I play the move rook g8, and it's a bit tricky because he can't take the rook because he would hang his queen. And if he plays knight takes f7 check, then I was thinking queen takes f7, and maybe I can play queen h7 in case he checks on the h file. But all moves are losing, so he's spoiled for choice on what he can do here. So after rook g8, the simplest move is to of course trade queens, which he promptly does, and then I'm just in this endgame down a knight and a pawn, and it's pretty easy for anybody to win this. I keep playing because why not? I want to make it worth my while. So king takes e5, and then he has a 2-on-1. I try to rush back to stop the pawn, but after knight d5 check, I resign here because he's going to win the c-pawn, and I have absolutely no play, and this game is totally hopeless. So I didn't even feel like I did anything wrong this game. I just got massively outplayed out of nowhere, and that's how games can feel sometimes. And here is what I was saying. Anmay played this game at 96.6, which is insanely high, almost like Stockfish. And I didn't even play that shabby. I played at 89.7, which is a damn good accuracy for a loss. Usually I get that accuracy for when I win, but for when I lose, that's pretty remarkably high. So I guess I can't be too bummed by that. But 96.6 is a remarkably high accuracy, so maybe this was just his lucky day. He played like a total bot, and I didn't really have any sort of chance at all. As you can see by the graph, it never dipped below that middle line, and it just steadily grew in White's favor. So yeah, there's not really much I can say from this tough game. So hope you guys liked the video, and hope you guys had a nice Thanksgiving if you're watching this today or after Thanksgiving. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and have a great rest of your day or night. Bye.